The photograph was taken at 11:42 at night, and in it, Claire Whitmore is asleep on the living room couch, one arm hanging off the cushion, the television still glowing across her face. Behind her, resting on her right shoulder, is a hand, long fingers, a wedding band catching the light from the screen. There is no arm attached to it. There is no body behind the couch. There is nothing in the room but Claire, the television, and that hand. Her daughter Emma took the photo. She was 16, standing in the hallway, trying to get a shot of the dog curled up near her mother's feet for a photo project due the next morning. She did not notice the hand until she reviewed the picture 3 days later, sitting in a school library, and felt her stomach drop. The file reached the agency through a referral from a private investigator the family had already hired and dismissed, unconvinced by his conclusion that the image had simply been altered. Agents Ethan Cole and Victoria Hayes were assigned the case not because of the photograph itself, but because of what the local police report had already ruled out before the family ever called anyone. On the night in question, the home security system logged 0 door or window openings. The video doorbell recorded no visitors, no delivery, no movement on the porch after 9 in the evening. Claire's husband, Daniel, was 700 miles away, checked into a hotel in another state for a work conference. His key card logged at 10:58, his phone pinging off a tower 2 blocks from that hotel at 11:40, 4 minutes before the photo was taken. The question the agents carried into the house was not who touched Claire while she slept. It was how anyone touched her at all. Before leaving the office, Hayes ran the photograph itself through the agency's forensic imaging lab, expecting the analysts to confirm what the family's own investigator had already claimed, that the hand had been added digitally after the fact. The report came back the opposite way. The lighting on the hand matched the television's exact color temperature at that exact timestamp, something no editing software could replicate without already knowing the precise wavelength the screen was emitting that second. The shadow the hand cast on Claire's shoulder bent correctly around the fabric of her sleeve. Whatever had been photographed, it had genuinely been in that room, catching real light, the same way anything else in the frame had. The first thing Cole noticed when they walked through the house was how new it felt. The Whitmores had lived there only 8 months, having bought it from an estate sale after the previous owner passed away with no immediate family to claim the property. Cole asked Claire whether she had ever felt watched in the living room specifically, and she hesitated before answering, admitting she sometimes woke up on that same couch with her shoulder feeling warm, as if a hand had just been lifted away. She had never mentioned it to Daniel. She thought it sounded insane. Hayes spent the afternoon in the county archive, pulling records on the house's previous ownership, and found something the estate sale paperwork had conveniently left out. The man who sold the house to the Whitmores was not the original owner. He was the son of a woman named Rosalind Farrow, who had lived in that house alone for over 20 years after her husband disappeared without explanation in the winter of 1991. The disappearance was never solved. No body was found. No note was left. Rosalind kept his side of the closet untouched for the rest of her life, according to a neighbor Hayes tracked down, who still remembered how she used to talk about him in the present tense, as though he had only stepped out for a moment and would be back any night now. Cole ran the wedding band visible in the photograph against the missing husband's known jewelry, using an old anniversary photo the neighbor still had framed in her hallway. The band matched. Not similar, matched, down to the slightly worn engraving along the inner edge, a detail too specific to be coincidence or digital fabrication. Whatever hand had been photographed resting on Claire's shoulder was wearing a ring that belonged to a man who vanished 35 years before the Whitmores ever bought that house. The reconnection to the open question came here. If Daniel was 700 miles away and no living person had entered the home, then the hand in the photograph did not belong to anyone who could have physically walked through that door. It belonged to someone whose only claim to that house was that he had never actually left it. A second neighbor, an older man who had lived across the street since before Rosalind ever moved in, gave Hayes a detail no official record had captured. He remembered the night the husband vanished more clearly than most, because Rosalind had knocked on his door at nearly midnight, asking if he had seen her husband walk past, insisting she had just watched him sit down on their living room couch not 10 minutes earlier. When the neighbor walked her back home to check, the couch was empty, the television still playing to no one, exactly the way it had been left. Rosalind never called the police that same night. She waited 3 full days, telling anyone who asked that he was simply resting and would get up when he was ready. Hayes pulled the original missing persons file from 1991. Buried in a records warehouse the local department had nearly digitized incorrectly, filing it under a misspelled last name that had kept it from ever surfacing in earlier searches. The file included a detail the neighbor's story had left out. Rosalind had reported her husband missing 3 days after his disappearance, not because he failed to come home, but because she woke up one morning and found her wedding photograph on the nightstand had been moved, turned slightly, so that his face pointed directly at the bed. She told the responding officer at the time that she believed he was still in the house. The officer wrote it off as grief. The case was closed within a year for lack of any evidence of foul play, and lack of any evidence at all. The turn came when Cole Cross referenced the couch itself. The Whitmores had brought their own furniture when they moved in. Every piece purchased new except for one item Claire had picked up secondhand from an estate liquidation because she liked the fabric. The liquidation had been Rosalind Farrow's own estate sale, held the same week the house changed hands. The couch Claire fell asleep on every night, the one in the photograph, the one where she woke up with her shoulder feeling warm, was the same couch Rosalind Farrow had slept on for 2 decades, while she waited for a husband who was never coming back through that door. Whatever remained of him had not stayed with the house. It had stayed with the couch. The Whitmores were advised to remove the item from the home immediately, and Claire complied without argument, driving it to a donation center herself, rather than risk it landing with someone else. For 11 nights after that, nothing happened. On the 12th night, Emma photographed the empty corner of the living room where the couch used to sit, testing her camera for a different school project entirely. In the resulting image, faint but unmistakable in the corner of the frame, is the outline of a man sitting where the couch no longer stands, one hand resting on empty air at exactly shoulder height, as though he had not yet noticed that no one was there to touch anymore. The donation center that received the couch logged it into inventory 2 days after the Whitmores dropped it off. It was purchased within the week by a family the agency has not yet been able to trace, paying in cash, leaving no forwarding information beyond a delivery address on the far side of the county. The agency's file on the Whitmore residence remains open, though the true case, Cole noted in his final report, may no longer belong to that house at all. Presence does not require a body, and does not require an object either. It only requires someone who never agreed that they had left, and a piece of furniture willing to carry him wherever it goes next.